First off, I want to send a big shout out to all the new subs I gained over the past few days due to my Halloween Ends video. I do appreciate all of you for that. And just so you know, if you are new here, one thing that I like to do on this channel, other than review and talk about movies, is to expose the hypocrisy going on with current film discussion and film criticism. I fight for fandoms first and foremost, and right now, the Halloween fandom is under attack. Let's discuss. Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
If there's one trend in entertainment discussion that I can't stand, it's the toxic fandom narrative that is typically used to deflect very valid criticisms away from a movie. This also comes with blanket statements from people defending these movies, where they question other people's fandom just because they don't like something in that franchise.
Get the fuck out of here! No, I cannot, it's serious!
Basically saying you're not a real fan if you don't like this movie or you don't like that movie. This type of thinking has infected many franchises over the years. It infected Star Wars, it infected Marvel, hell, this year it even infected Scream. And now this ugly trend has officially hit the Halloween franchise.
Why do these things always happen to me?
This coming after the release of the controversial Halloween Ends. A TikTok video went viral over this past weekend where some girl claiming to be a Halloween fan flat out stated that if you do not like Halloween Ends, that means you are not a real Halloween fan and you're more of a Michael Myers fan. This is basically in response to people's complaints about how Michael Myers was barely in this movie. She also states in this very long-winded rant defending this movie that Michael Myers not being in Halloween Ends makes sense to the franchise.
A what?
Because John Carpenter and Dobra Hill, as she calls her, always wanted to turn Halloween into an anthology series. That was their ultimate goal, according to this person, and they never got to tell that story. And Halloween Ends is supposedly honoring them by removing Michael from this movie. Now there's a lot to unpack here, but let me start with this. This whole argument is nothing more than people moving the goalpost to try to justify a movie that worked for them. Well, it doesn't work for a lot of other people, because in a lot of people's eyes, mine included, Michael Myers is Halloween, outside of Season of the Witch, of course.
Goddamn right, that's the only way I work, Cap.
It should also be noted that regardless of how you personally feel about Season of the Witch now, people hated that movie initially because guess what? It didn't have Michael Myers. And this led to the creative team behind the Halloween franchise abandoning this whole anthology series idea. Because when it came right down to it, people clearly just wanted to see Michael Myers kill people.
Because it's all part of the plan.
These two things, Michael Myers and Halloween, are not mutually exclusive like some people are claiming they are. The anthology argument sounds good now, for people doing mental gymnastics to try to justify why Ends was a good movie. But if we're being honest with ourselves, nobody was asking for this concept to be revisited a year ago or even a week ago. All of this is because a majority of people didn't like this movie, and there are people who are desperate to defend it. And they will use any kind of half-ass reasoning to do so.
Whoopie fucking do. Hey, I'm impressed.
And by the way, if you have to defend a movie this much, and try to piece together reasons why it makes sense in this manner, to the level that some people are doing it, it doesn't say much for the quality of that movie, and it comes off as trying way too hard. As for the argument of what John Carpenter ultimately wanted or didn't want for the Halloween franchise, it's pretty much common knowledge at this point that he never intended to even make a sequel to the original movie at all.
Oh, you're right. And when you're right, you're right. And you're always right.
The only reason he was actually producer of Halloween 2 and Season of the Witch is because he was pretty much forced to. So if you are in fact trying to honor his original plans, the best possible course to do that would be to stop making Halloween sequels. He even came out recently and said himself that he's only involved with this new trilogy for the paycheck. And the only movie he really cares about in this franchise is the original. So to try to use John Carpenter to defend Halloween Ends only shows me that maybe you shouldn't be calling out other people's fandom, and you should take a good long look in the mirror at your own fandom. But TikTok wasn't the only place to try to build these type of narratives. The cesspool that is Twitter tried to do something similar. Like this Halloween Ends account that says, Halloween Ends is a movie that doesn't give the fans exactly what they want on a silver platter. Hardly any Easter eggs or nostalgia bait, it's everything I wanted. It didn't take away or explain Michael, it added to his story of evil and its impact. Great end. Yes, because why would you ever want to give the fans what they want? It should be noted that before this movie was even released, it was rumored to most likely piss off the core fan base. Sometimes people take this idea of a movie subverting fans' expectations in the weirdest way possible as a badge of honor for themselves. Because normies love it for some reason when Hollywood sticks it to the diehard fans. Because why would you want to make the people happy who made this franchise what it is to this day?
Fuck me, right?
I'm talking about the people who have stuck with this franchise through many awful sequels already. Top Gun Maverick was released this year, and they were very vocal about how that movie was made specifically to please fans in the best way possible. And look what happened. It became the biggest financial success all year at the box office. Because that's what giving the fans what they want gets you. And it also gets you good word of mouth so your movie has legs moving forward.
That makes sense.
And as for this movie not taking anything away from Michael, sadly, nothing could be further from the truth. And I don't want to hear that his actions inspired the events in this movie, and that's what makes him important. The fact remains that he had a minimal physical presence in this movie, and was made to look weaker and less intimidating than we've ever seen him before. And again, this is supposed to be his final appearance, mind you. And he was relegated to a supporting character status. And that's just not how you end an iconic character's legacy. And I don't care about revisiting the human element of this story if you're going to do it through a character that nobody has a connection to. It's not taking things back to basics, it's taking Michael's greatest attributes and handing them to another character that didn't even earn it. Yes, Halloween can be about more than just a masked man running around killing people, but that shouldn't come at the cost of devaluing the most iconic fictional serial killer that has ever existed.
You about to cross some fucking lines.
Guys, relax.
And finally, we have Richard Newby, who says, quote, "I've seen a number of folks say Halloween Ends should have just been Laurie and Michael facing off. I don't really see how that's a movie, though. The last act of 2018 stretched to 2 hours, them fighting each other for the duration like a superhero movie climax? Nah, it's not for me." While I agree that the concept of Michael versus Laurie for 2 hours doesn't sound all that appealing, one point that people seem to be missing here is that there's a reason that a lot of people thought that this movie was going to be just that. Maybe the studio shouldn't have sold this movie as Michael versus Laurie for the last time. This is again people moving the goalpost because they like the movie. And they're calling out people who are misled by a bullshit trailer and removing all accountability from the studio and how this movie was marketed. You know what? It's okay to point this flaw in the marketing out. That doesn't make you toxic. It just means that you don't like being lied to and you want to know what you're spending your money on.
I'd buy that for $1.
If this movie was sold as a Corey story, and people knew somewhat about what was going on in it, I think the response would have been much different. Or like I said before, at the very least, present this character to us sooner, so it's not so jarring when he completely takes over the movie. When it comes right down to it, I'm just not a fan of incoherent trilogies, with 3 movies that feel completely separate from each other, and also completely disrespect iconic characters in the process. And no amount of retroactive mental gymnastics is going to change that. You can watch these movies and find any meaning you want if you look hard enough. But the truth is that those messages and meanings, if in fact they are there, were executed poorly. And because of that, it's very hard for a lot of us to overlook this movie's obvious flaws. Call it having standards, call it whatever you want, but the one thing you can't call it is toxic. There are a lot of valid criticisms being brought to this movie by very real Halloween fans. And they deserve to have their voices heard and not be painted as a villain because of it.
Y'all be cool. Right on.